So the being that I want to align this to is the structure itself. My perspective, when I lift it up above my head, you see how my perspective's in the middle? Or what I call my perspective? When it's folded over, I could perceive my perspective in the middle, but what I want to do is I want to get this apparent opposition to both go on one side of me. Can you see that? I'll do that at you so you can be clear on that. I want this to go over there, and I want this to go over there, and my perspective be behind them. And I want to keep them both, I want to keep on my vector, I keep them both in front of me. So the swing, as far as I'm concerned, is staying in front of me that way, not in front of me in the traditional sense. So I don't want it in front of me this way, I want it in front of me this way. And it's going to stay in front of me until it goes behind me. So it's not going to get actually in front of me at any stage. I want it to be in the traditional sense of in front of you, right? I want it to the forward side of me rather than in front of me. That's a better way to describe it.
Okay.
I want it to the forward side of me, the lead side of me. And I want it to stay on the lead side of me in feel until it drops to the trail side of me, and then I want it to stay on the trail side of me until it drops to the lead side again. Does that look reasonable?
Well, that's what you're doing.
That's
yeah.
what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is, I believe this is all essential knowledge for you to be able to do this.
Okay.
We need to understand, like, if we keep the vector, Victor, what's going to happen? Okay, what happens if we keep the vector? Okay, I'm going to intend to set the vector up left of me. Okay, as this camera can now see, left of me. Okay, then keeping it left of me in one direction and left of me in the other direction, the two folded over halves, the club will turn it to my right. And when the club turns it to my right, I'm now aligned on the other side of me, in my vector. I'm still on the vector. I haven't moved, I don't need to move now. Stay on the vector. Now, if you don't have this, right, this is where I think all the good players develop it, is because the game demands of them to play at the level that they play at, to have this energy be so well contained. It has to be. Because they need both the amount of power to be precise, because they've got to control their distances. They need a shitload of power to play PGA Tour courses effectively, and they need precision. They need all of that. How do you create all of that? Well, you have to have a pretty good system, don't you?
Consistent vectors, Victor?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
If you've got something that you know you're bringing to the table. Now, the thing is, I talk about the club doing a lot of this, right? But the thing is, that's what it's designed to do. And if you're not letting the club do everything it should be, what are you doing? You know, you should be taking full advantage of the club in your hand. So I've got a 5-iron here. How far can I throw that ball without this club? Not very far.
Yeah.
Not in the shape I'm in. Right. But with a 5-iron, well, now we've got something,
Yeah.
right? So I've got a pretty good weapon here, you see?
Yeah.
And so I'm going to use the weapon. Okay? I can't throw it very far, but I can hit the 5-iron pretty far.
Yeah, that's pretty far.
Well, you know, I think 5-iron, you know, should go about 190 yards for me, which is not like a PGA Tour player, but that's okay. So I can't throw it 190 yards. But if I don't use the club properly, I would argue that that would be me doing the club's role. And I think, for everybody watching, the club's role is to go from here and go here and here and swing end over end like this, which you can see completes, in effect, with me barely even hanging on to it, right? Barely with one finger or two fingers, just barely hanging on to it, completes a full goal swing. Now that's not particularly energetic, right? Because there's not much power there, right? Like that's a 5-iron's gone about 60, 70 yards. But how does it get energy? How do I energize it more than that? Because that's enough motion, isn't it?
Motion's there, yeah, but the
Motion's there.
connection's not there.
Right. So what we need is we need that action that sends it about 60 yards with a strong vector, Mr. Victor. Okay? So we're going to get it, we get the strong vector, we pour energy into that vector, and the club takes that energy and does what I just did with 2 fingers, and it gets another 120 yards out of the deal. Okay?
Yep.
Again, I know some of this is very abstract, but the thing is, it's black and white. You're either, well, conceptually it's black and white. You're either on this one vector, right? You're either on the one vector and sustaining that, or you're on another, plan altogether, okay? So I'm either going to sustain this vector and let the club swing me around the circle, or I'm going to move it and do something. So it's black and white in that regard. But everybody sort of believes the correct way for them is somewhere in the grey area. It's in how they move it, right? That's the answer for them, in how they move and how they position. And I'd argue that that's just, now you're in the grey area, right? And you're just going to be there forever. What I would say is, even if you don't believe that what I'm saying is possible, you won't know until you give it a crack and see what comes out of it. See, you don't know what swing would come out of you, John, if you kept the vector and just simply had this intention to keep the vector until the vector turned over, and then you still kept the vector. Now it's on the other side of you, but you're still keeping the vector. See? What swing would you produce? We don't know, because you've never done that. Would you agree?
Well, I've never done it, but technically and mechanically, I can see that if I did maintain the vector, I'm going to get a good result.
You would think so.
Over and out.
Yeah. And so for me, I know because I had no momentum there, right? I did that very slowly.
Yeah.
The momentum would take out some of this shape. How much of this shape depends on how much momentum. That's really the equation of the golf swing. It's a vector in you, folded over, unfolding into alignment, going on the other side into its alignment on the other side now, in opposition, and refolding.
And that's our one circle direction, isn't it?
Yes. That the golf swing is that plus momentum. Momentum of the club produces this arc around us, and it produces this arc side to side. That's all momentum there, right? That's not. I don't have to create any of that. I get it from the length of the club. You can see it, length of the club, right? It's the only way it can go. So for me, I don't have to create the golf swing that we all know we see. I don't create that. I create a vector, and I sustain this particular vector right here. I'm going to sustain that one.
There, all kinds of power.